And it's 7 away from 8, Dubbo Mayor, Matthew Dickinson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kerry. How are you going this morning?
I'm extremely good. What's happening in your neck of the woods, sir?
Oh, Kerry, I've got bad news to give you. We are still in the middle of a very frustrating boil water alert. It's almost embarrassing that I've got to talk to you in Bathurst with a boil water alert in Dubbo. We've had this on since the 7th of July. We had a lot of turbidity coming down the river. The river was very stirred up from the floodwaters coming down. So for about 10 hours, we had some water that was out of spec, that was too turbid going to our water treatment system. So we had to notify New South Wales Health. We put a boil water alert on. It took us till about 6:18 p.m. on Thursday, the 7th of July, to fix the problem. And then we've been pumping out good water since then. But we're having a bit of an argument with New South Wales Health, Kerry. We believe the water is right to go now. We believe the water is safe. But New South Wales Health are saying, no, you've got to have that boil water alert on still. And it's getting a bit out of hand now, this discussion, this argument. We've got about 86 megalitres of water in our reservoirs across the network. So far, we've produced double that volume of water that's in the right specifications. So we've produced over 170 megalitres of water into our reservoirs, into our network, and they're still saying, sorry, you can't lift the boil water alert. So interesting going on in Dubbo, but unfortunately, if you do come visit Dubbo, you've got to boil your water before you drink it.
Well, there you go. Okay. And of course, most importantly, too, you should boil the water, obviously, under New South Wales Health, of course, when they say these sort of things, don't they? Now, just on another one, which is an interesting one, is your pavilion, the Tony Kelly Pavilion. What's the story on that?
Well, let's make sure we get the right Tony Kelly here too. There are two Tony Kellys that were involved in local government and then state government over the years. There's Tony Kelly, we call him the Wellington Tony Kelly, who was in Wellington Council, involved in Wellington Council, and then went on to state government. And then there was the Dubbo Tony Kelly, who was the general manager. Actually, it goes back that long ago, Kerry, that he was the town clerk for many years before the position of town clerk got changed into general manager. So he goes back to the 1970s, the early 1970s, that he was the town clerk and did a very successful job. When I first got onto council in 2004, he was still the general manager and retired some months after I joined. Hopefully not because I did join council, but some months after I joined, he retired. Now, he did some great things for Dubbo as general manager, but also outside of that, he was very involved in Sims Rugby League. He was involved in the Turf Club. So he did a range of things around the community. The last council last year made a request to the Geographical Names Board of the state to rename our Victoria Park No. 1 Oval to Tony Kelly Oval. And that council thought that was a fitting tribute for Tony Kelly. They actually rejected that application. They had some community feedback where it wasn't that positive, so they said, no, we reject that. So we still thought it was worthwhile honouring Tony in some way. So now what we've said to the community is we believe that instead of naming Tony Kelly Oval, the No. 1 Oval there's a pavilion, a new pavilion that's just been built there. So we suggested we name that the Tony Kelly Pavilion. That's out on public display at the moment to see what feedback we get from the community before we go ahead and officially name that the Tony Kelly Pavilion. But I think that'd be a fitting tribute for him.
Okay. Now, just finally this morning, just running into the news here, but just finally, the Opera Australia. Now, you're going to get a bit of culture. Is this right, Matthew?
What do you mean get a bit of culture? What are you saying there, Kerry? We've got lots of culture, and we even know now that it doesn't start with a K, it starts with a C. I have often talked about the fact that many years ago we did discover a bit of culture. We've got our Western Plains Cultural Centre, we've got our tiered theatre, of course, and we do regularly get cultural events along. We've had the Archibald exhibition 3 times in Dubbo. We've got things like opera. We've got philharmonic orchestras. And then you mix that in. What I love about our theatre, we mix those things in. A couple of weeks ago, I went along and saw the Melbourne Comedy Festival touring show that came through. So you get this whole variety of things. But yes, lots of culture passes by, and sometimes we even go and look at it, Kerry.
Good stuff. Great stuff. Now, have you when's the citizenship ceremony? Was that last week? Or this
that was last week. 34 people came along and were made citizens, and I get a real buzz out of those. I get to do lots of things that are interesting, exciting, and lots of things that sometimes are a bit tough as mayor. But my number one highlight as mayor is about every 2 months I get to make 30 or 40 people new citizens, and that is incredibly exciting. And when I say I get to make them, there's obviously a whole process they go through, and I just get to have the fun job at the end of the day to get them to say Aussie, 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 oi, 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 and just make sure that they get really excited about being Aussies. But it's really uplifting. But you talk to them, Kerry, and you say, where did you come from and what brought you here to Australia, and more importantly, what brought you to Dubbo. Most of them say the great mayor brought them to Dubbo, but what brought them to Australia is just our way of life and just...
Oh, God, this is getting worse.
I do prep them before I say the correct answer of what brought you to Dubbo is the great mayor. And by the way, remember, I get to make you a citizen. So they're all very good and answer the question correctly there. But they have some fascinating stories about why they've left their country and they've come to this country and then come to this city in particular. So I love talking to them. I might spend an hour and a half just chatting to individuals afterwards and just hearing their stories, because it is fascinating, Kerry, absolutely fascinating.
I know it's fascinating. Of course, it's all part of, once again, our culture with the C, not with the K.
That's right. Good work.
Good on you, mate. Thanks, mate. Good to talk to you. We'll catch up.
Thanks, Kerry.
Thanks, buddy. There we go.